Hello. Welcome to a cruiser re-inspection. Our first re-inspection, baby. We're looking at the Jinan. Why are we re-inspecting a cruiser? Well, because as always, Wargaming cannot help themselves from buffing strong or balanced ships. And here we are with the Jinan. The Jinan received a buff. What did the Jinan receive a buff with? Well, the Jinan received about 1800 extra HP, which I'm totally fine with. It also now does an extra 100 damage per shell, which is roughly a 5.5% raw DPM increase. And the fire chance was raised from 9 to 11%, which for you first grade math wizards out there, that's about a 22% increase in fire starting. This now, if you run one of the improved fire chance wrong captains with the 1.5x fire chance additive, Jinan now has, I believe, the highest fires per minute in the entire game, including, I believe that includes even super ships like Jacksonville. I'm not 100% on Jacksonville, but as from tier 10s you have the best fire starting. And I believe you're actually up there with Jacksonville now. So oh, the Torps also randomly do 900 extra damage. Now, why did Wargaming give this ship that for anyone with hands and a brain recognized was already like one of the very best non-utility cruisers in the entire game? The Jinan is incredibly good, incredibly fucking good, and always was. Why did it get a buff? Well, like with the Belfast 43 that we recently reviewed, this is an attempted buff to the player base. This is not Wargaming trying to buff the ship. Now, like we also discussed with the Belfast 43 buff, the idea that people aren't performing in the Jinan, which already had like was basically tied with Smolensk for best fire starting and DPM in the game. It was very barely worse, but has a better smoke, a better hull, an insane god tier torps, insane god tier AA, right? Jinan was kind of always a better Smolensk. It just was harder to hit the shells in. But like, assuming you could aim, the Jinan was always better than the Smolensk overall, right? The kind of the only thing that the Smolensk really does that Jinan doesn't do is it really shits on destroyers even at medium and long range because of the shell velocity, right? Um, but the Jinan at close range, like dumpsters DDs anyway, it just nukes them. So Wargaming has attempted to buff the player base's bad performance in Jinan by buffing what? Oh yeah, that's right. By buffing the damage output, which isn't gonna buff the fucking player base performance work. Guys, how do they not understand this? Like seriously, how do they not understand that if you had a 45 win rate in Jinan, having 10% better damage output isn't gonna make you have a 50% win rate in it? If they want to buff the Jinan for bad players, they need to buff the survivability of the Jinan. Give it a 3 kilometer hydro. Give it the shit hydro that San Martin gets so it doesn't get torped in its smoke, right? Good players don't eat Dev Strike torps in their smoke. Good players don't randomly blow up open water across the map. Good players don't randomly good players know how to angle to utilize the 32mm belt. Good players don't have an issue with Jinan survivability. Bad players have an issue with Jinan survivability. Bad players aren't making the Jinan's insane gun output, insane damage output work for them. Like, I don't understand what we're doing. Like, we're buffing the characteristics of a ship that are just going to make all this buff to Jinan is doing. This is what it's doing. The only thing this buff is doing is making bad players every bit as bad as they always were at the Jinan and making good players more toxic. Like, dude, the Jinan is already to me like a top 5 most toxic cruiser in the entire game when it's farming you. Like it already pre-buff, insane fire starting, insane DPM, a decently long smoke screen, crazy torps. You can never afford to. You can't, unlike a lot of other light cruisers, right? Unlike a lot of smoke farming cruisers where you can, if you're in a 1v1 or like maybe a 1v2, you can be like, you know what, fuck this guy, I'm running out of smoke. Like, you can't do that in the Jinan, right? Because it can shit 40 fucking deep water torps into you. This is why, this is, in case you're wondering, Jinan Positioning 101. Yes, this is clinical Jinan positioning right here. center of the map in front of your entire team, including all of your destroyers. This is how I like to play the Jinan, and part of why the Jinan is so good, in case you didn't watch the original review I did of it, or just can't be bothered to look at that, is you have a bit of armor. You have a substantial, really substantial proportion of your side plating is 32 and up. And so if you look at the matchmaker here real quick, Vincent, Bourgogne, Colombo, none of those battleships actually overmatch the main strip of belt armor on the Jinan. And so now you do have a 16 millimeter nose and ass, right? So every battleship in the game overmatches that. Even ships in this lobby like their Napoli overmatch that. But because of the nature of the aiming system breaking down when you're turning in or turning out, what kind of tends to happen is even intelligent players who know where to aim at your bow will often find it very difficult to snipe your bow if you're actively maneuvering, because the aiming system tries to compensate. So when you are turning in very suddenly at close range when a battleship shoots at you, if you're currently turning in, even if they're trying to aim, say, up in front of your bow, like up here, for you to turn in and hit it, a lot of the time it's not even necessarily their fault. The auto aim kind of like drags the shells down more than it should and prevents you from hitting where you want, right? Like we all know about the slowdown and turn out. The reason why slowdown and turn out, well, number aside from the fact that maybe people are misaiming, the reason why slowdown and turn out works so effectively is uh, the auto aim just doesn't work when you do it. Basically, um, it kind of fucks with your aim point, and a lot of that is true on like Jinan and Austin when you turn in. That's how you kind of avoid all of the damage in these ships. These ships don't. I mean, you can kind of speed juke at longer range, but these aren't really ships that typically dodge by speed juking. Typically, the way you mitigate damage in Jinan is you watch the shells come in and you just angle up to them, because yes, it's possible that at long range a shell could go through your deck and citadel you, but it's not super likely. So typically, when you're dodging shells in the Jinan, you're not all or nothing speed juke dodging. You're typically trying to turn in to catch the shells on the belt. Now, obviously, that doesn't work at all against Yamato, Musashi, the ships with 32 overmatching up, right? Doesn't work at all against them. But against 95% of ships, it works really well. So that's the idea. Now we are in. I'm kind of trolling, but I'm actually not even trolling. This is, in my mind, literally this is classic Jinan positioning, dead center in the map on a rock. This is actually what I'm trying to do every game in the Jinan, and it's something that you can't do like in the vast majority of other ultralight cruisers. Really, I mean, you can't really even do this in Smolensk because the smokes are on cooldown for too long, and you only get 3 of them. You don't have any armor. The One of the major values that Jinan has, the major values that it has, is it kind of can't ever get one shot by battleships. Now, okay, caveat: if they've got 32 overmatch, they can one shot you. But as long as they don't have 32 overmatch and you start the fight, like even this HP, right, 32,000 HP. If I Let's say this Vincent were to push me, okay, and I have to push back into him. I come around the rock at 9 kilometers. The odds of him one-shotting me are virtually zero. He would have to get like the most unicorn luck dispersion in human fucking history to one-shot me. And that's definitely not true of the vast majority of even like heavy cruisers could like very easily just randomly get one-shot by something like a Vincent at close range. The G9 is just so incredibly unlikely because the only way for him to citadel you is straight through the nose. And it's just not very big, right? The target for that guy to hit to try to get sits through the bow is pretty fucking small compared to most cruisers. The Jinan itself is pretty small. The Jinan is quite slim. It has a bit of troll armor. I'd say like super close range. You can kind of go perfectly flat and roll the dice on taking 0 damage. It's pretty risky. That's why the turning in. And you see here just like some truly insane play, really from both teams. But this Gearing is apparently just going to lose his mind. Quite the interesting play that he is making. Quite the interesting play, undeniably. Quite interesting. I don't really think he understands like how islands work. That torpedoes don't sail through islands. Unfortunately for him, they do not in fact sail straight through islands. And then I just made the decision here. It's like if the Shima turned in, I'll catch him and just leave the smoke. I mean, dude, I listen. I don't know what you want from me. This is if you watch this channel, this is the gameplay you should expect by now. Um, just full botting, and then unfortunately, yeah, we take a Shima toward midship for max damage. Truly unlucky, but this is the thing. The play style does sometimes you're rewarded for being a bot because my CV actually spotted him, and we get the kill, and we're dead to torps. So we click twice, and the game only counts one click because the netcode is a pile of bullshit spaghetti. But imagine if it had let me click twice. Kind of hilarious. Torping half a second before dead. And this guy actually slowed down to E3. Would have been dead if the game had allowed my second set of torps to launch. So, I mean, that's the Jinan. Reinspection. Is there really anything? I was kind of debating even re-reviewing the ship because, like, I don't think anything has changed. A buff like, and I kind of feel the same thing about the Champagne. A little bit. Like, I don't think the boat feels any different with the reload booster. It's just like you just kind of add like 20k damage to every game, because of the reload booster. Unlike, say, the Regolo, which we'll look at, hopefully in the next week or so. The buff to Regolo like actually changes how the ship plays. Still a stupid buff, but very different, right? The Jinan doesn't play any differently. It's just like if you were good in the Jinan before 14.0 patch, then now you're just 20% better, right? Like and this is why I'm harping on this so much. This is why I'm dragging on this point so much, so incessantly, so autistically, you might even say. This buff just makes. I mean, I'm not like God's gift to Jinan gameplay, right? But I like, I'm regularly like top of the team in the Jinan, farming like 150k plus, getting a few kills, right? Performing, right? I would say I'm performing in the Jinan. These buffs for a player like me is just like candy. Like, ooh, yeah. But like, let me ask you a question. If you're the kind of guy who like randomly gets one shot every game in Jinan, gets torped in your smoke every game, like, how is this buff helping you, right? Like, I don't know, dude. I don't get it. I don't really get it. Like, in capable hands, the Jinan was like incredibly good. Incredibly good. Like, I don't think this is a hot take. I think most people who are really good in the Jinan and really good in the Smolensk will acknowledge that overall, the Jinan's basically just better than the Smolensk and always has been, right? The Smolensk is easier to play because the shells are easier to hit. The Smolensk definitely is better like divisioned with a destroyer teammate because you can, even at like 10, 11 kilometers, you can pump damage into DDs, right? You can't really do that in Jinan at 10, 11. 7 or 8 maybe, but not 10 or 11. But like the ship was always a damage farming machine. And we're trying to buff the player base's performance, which is bad, by giving the ship buffs that only the players who are already good can utilize in it. I just don't get it. And as always, we're in the very next game, 2 back-to-back games as usual. And this lobby is a bit more troubling. They got a Satsuma, and they got a Yamato. And that's really the only thing you truly don't want to see. I would say there's two types of ships you don't want to see. One is you do not want to see ships with 460 plus millimeter guns because they ignore your primary survival tool, which is turning in while being shot at to take hits on the 32 millimeter belt. They completely negate that strategy. That also opens up, instead of having to snipe the very tip of your nose to citadel you through the bow, they can hit you all the way back here and get citadels through the bow, right? And then the other thing is Loria. You just don't want Loria in your games, bro, because you got exposed citadel belt that his sat pen. So there's no Loria. But 2 of their BBs completely ignore my armor. Honestly, and this kind of, it's very strange. It's a very strange mindset to train yourself into. But in Jinan and Austin, you don't like really care about ships with 450s like with overmatch. It's weird. You only care about that 32 mil overmatch. So it kind of is like a different mindset of what to be concerned of and how to play. And that's what like I think the main issue I see with a lot of Jinan players is they play way too like in my opinion way too passively. They play the Jinan like it's a Smolensk like any salvo coming in on them will just like completely one shot them, or they play like a Minotaur where any salvo that comes in could one shot them. And it's like it's not like that. I mean, the ship is way more resilient than a lot of even standard light cruisers, let alone ultralights, right? Just down to that belt, like you can take some risks in the Jinan, um, and you have, importantly, you have like deterrent style DPM, like especially with these buffs, man. I mean, this DPM output is I mean it's really something. It really it's something, dude. I mean, I want to say like with a build, with the right build, I mean, which of course is main gun focused, the idea you would ever build for these torps is laughable. um but Gnan has like 360,000 HEDPM base, which you're buffing by 12% with reload mods. So now you're up to 400,000. You're then buffing by 10% with the captain skill, heavy HE, because you can take it for free. So 440,000 HEDPM on the Gnan with this build. And the fires per minute is demonic. I mean, absolutely fucking demonic fires per minute, dude. Like, post buff, your fires per minute are like over 25, I want to say. It's just crazy. So, like, even if something like a full HP battleship pushes it, are you going to kill a full HP battleship 1v1? No. You're a cruiser, right? It's forbidden technology to truly kill battleships and cruisers, but you're going to pump out so much fucking damage. And because of the armor, you're very unlikely to get one shot, again, unless it's close range by a ship with 460 plus millimeter guns. You're very unlikely to get one shot. So you can play aggressively, and that's what we're doing, right? Both of these games, we are playing, moderately aggressively. Central position, the farthest ship up on our team. Petra with an absolute clutch radar, it must be said. Because that was kind of the one thing that could fuck this play up for me is if the Shima was in my mouth. And so, our team kills him. Very good. So now I'm very centrally positioned. I've got a Vermont. I've got an Ohio to farm, hopefully. We're just hoping that our carrier is going to come back with planes and give us vision on the Vermont. Another thing that I think people make the mistake of doing is they hoard the torpedo reload booster for when they can torp both sides. And I actually do think that's quite a mistake that will often not only miss you out on torpedo damage, but will often cause you to play kind of like risky slash dumb when you don't need to. So like in this situation, right, I used the reload booster because the only thing that I'm ever going to be able to land torps on is the Vermont, right? Now, the mistake that I see people do this, right? This isn't just like man on internet in hypothetical. I see people do this. They'll shoot the right side of torps, and then what will they do in this situation? They'll maneuver 180 in their smoke to shoot the other set of torps, and then they'll use the reload booster. And like by the time that you've done that, you've missed out on so much gun. Like the primary way of getting damage in the Gnan has always been and still is your guns. Like 440,000 HEDPM. Like, yeah, we're hitting a torp for 10k. It's nice, right? Great. We got a flood on him. But like, I did like what 50k damage to him with the guns before that, right? Like the torpedoes are a great tool, but you should never be positioning to give up guaranteed gun damage in order to get hopeful torpedo damage, if that makes sense. We hit another one. I think that was on the Brisbane back there. And I actually made a mistake. I didn't get punished for it, but you notice there what I did was I thought the Vermont would reload in time, right? I thought he would have a shot ready. So what I did is I slowed down and turned in to, theoretically catch it on the belt. And like, there's no reason to do that. I was so close to the island. My like monkey brain was like, I'm going to get shot at. This is how you dodge damage in Gnan. You slow down and turn in. Like, why did I do that? Like, no reason, right? I almost got blown the fuck up by Ohio. Like I almost got deleted because I made that one mistake. I got lucky, but yeah, don't do that. That was dumb. So we're getting the buffs. Hell yeah, dude, we're getting buffs. We are the destroyer now, as we say when we play Jinan. We are the destroyer now, baby. And we're just, we're gonna keep pushing because again, you have this resiliency. You have this resiliency in the Jinan, and we have great AA, so we get close enough to the carrier, we like shoot all his planes down for free, right? Um, Even in something like a Brisbane, our DPM is so much better. Like now he has a super heal, right, which can make up for a lot, but like the Jinan DPM, Jinan wins hard against like basically all the ultralights that aren't Colbert. Colbert is like the one ultralight cruiser that really does kill Jinan in a 1v1, but like Minotaur, Brisbane, like you should never be afraid of fighting those ships 1v1. As long as you don't let them go flat, especially Minotaur, you literally just angle up to the AP and you take 0 damage. So here we go. We got a Satsuma volley coming in, and he overmatches 32 millimeters of armor. So yeah, it's gonna fucking hurt. And if you noticed where he hit me for the Citadel, it was a nose Citadel up near the front turrets, and that's what we're getting at. Um, I was not angled perfectly. It is theoretically possible that a normal like 406 or 457 gun cal shell would Citadel there. It could happen, but it would be a bit of RNG, right? It would be in that range of will it pen, won't it pen. Um, but those 460s just allow people so much less skill required to Citadel this thing um, than anything that doesn't overmatch 32 millimeters of armor, right? Now, the Brisbane's coming around the rock, so again, I also like I'm not healing here. Like I'm just realizing, like watching this back, like why am I just not healing? Like what the fuck am I doing? Nobody knows. But you see the kind of damage, like this kind of damage is you win any like a Minotaur or a Brisbane will never kill this thing 1v1. Assuming they're both full HP. Because your damage output is like, well, against Brisbane you have double the DPM and you actually shatter a non-insignificant amount. Remember, the entire hull from like the second to last turret is going to shatter 30 millimeter HE pen, and then against the Minotaur, you just angle 20 degrees to it and it does 0 damage to you, right? So the Gina does very, very well. It does very well against a lot of heavy cruisers too. Even something like a Des Moines, it's really not bad because you just start so many fires. They don't have fire prevention, obviously, right? Um, the Gina is just really good, man. Now more than ever, but like if for some reason you're just not playing the ship, I don't know why. It's incredibly fucking good. It's fun. It's a dynamic playstyle because unlike other cruisers like Smolensk that die to like anything that clicks at them, or can, right? It's very unlikely. It's just unless they've got, like I said, the 32 mil overmatching guns, you're very, very unlikely to randomly blow up in this thing. I mean, honest to God, if I was perfectly bowing in a Jinan or perfectly bowing in a Des Moines and a Vermont shot at me, I would literally rather be in the fucking Jinan. Like, that's an insane thing to say, but it's just factually correct. Like, I would rather be, as long as they don't have 460s and up, I would, like, this hull is better. like, like, this, well, okay. This hull is uniquely good in the cruiser world against 457 millimeter armor. Let's say that, okay? 457 millimeter guns. It's uniquely good against that gun caliber because all these other cruisers get overmatched by 457s, right? Because they have 32 midsection, 32 deck. But like you saw there, Napoli overmatches me. We just bounced his whole salvo, right? Because he hit the belt. And that makes the ship's playstyle more dynamic. It's more interesting because you can blow up, but you can utilize skill to mitigate whether you blow up or not, right? You can push in more aggressively. You have better smokes than something like a Smolensk. The smokes are pretty good because you have a long puff time, so you can lay a lot of smoke. You have the torps. You have like some of the high. I mean, it's like I think it's Colbert and then Jinan. If I'm not, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, like when it comes to the highest just raw HEDPM in the game right now, um, I want to say it might be Colbert. I mean, Colbert is always going to be on top, but I think Jinan is like either at is almost at Smolensk. It might be barely lower. I can't remember, but it's easier to like play aggressive. I think that to me that's why the ship is way better than Smolensk. Is you can just play central positioning. You can play in people's faces. They're almost never going to randomly one shot you. In many times, and it's kind of weird because like the closer the range, the tankier the ship becomes. Because once you eliminate the ability for shells to plunge and deck pen you, right? Once people are point and clicking at close range, then it becomes a pure skill issue of they aim at your bow, you turn in and catch it on the belt. You bait them to shoot your broadside, you turn in and catch it on the belt, and like you can get in fights with like Ohio's and just like literally not take damage in this thing. It's kind of hilarious. Um, but the ship is just it's always been good. I have no they buffed it because of the player base, but not in a way that's going to make bad players perform. And then all they did was make the ship like 15% better if you were already good in it. I truly don't understand the game design. The thought process of like there's almost no ship in the like okay. There's almost no ship in the game. Just a little side tangent, not a rant, just a brief discussion. There's almost no cruiser in the game that's irrelevant because of its damage. Like, even a ship like Gibraltar, right? Gibraltar, widely renowned as being probably the worst tier 10 cruiser in the game. I mean, there is Sevastopol and other things, but it's up there, right? Nobody who plays Gibraltar has ever complained that the guns don't do damage, right? Like, the guns are so good. The guns are so good. Like, if you could have those guns on just like a Des Moines hull, the Gibraltar would instantly become a much better cruiser, right? The Gibraltar sucks because it has no survivability, right? And if you're underperforming in the Jinan, I would wager it's one of two things. The shells are too floaty and you can't hit shells, or you blow up randomly, or you die to torps and smoke. Like, I'm gonna guarantee those are the three reasons people who, if self-described, like if you say I'm bad in the Gnan, it's gonna be one of those three things. I have a really hard time hitting shells at long range because they're too floaty. I hit torps in my smoke because I don't have a hydro, or I randomly blow up to any BB that shoots me. I guarantee you those are the three top reasons people don't like the Gnan. None of those reasons are alleviated. Like, none of those reasons are addressed with this buff. It's just made the ship better for better players. And going equipment first, I think objective correct. I mean, you could run engine room protection. Probably that's overall better than the DFAA mod. This is really just to get it back 10% faster. Kind of cope skill, for being honest. But everything else, definitely. You don't build this thing for torps. That's retarded. Don't do that. Captain spec, I think we're again objectively optimum, aside from 2 points. 2 points of wiggle room. This is all objectively correct. You absolutely should run. This is a free 10% DPM at no cost to anything. The fire starting extra on Da Rong is bringing you from 11 to 12 and a half. I think we're being a cringe lord cuck and running fire flags. So you definitely this is the captain, right? If you're wondering, the Zha Zembeng, his talents don't really do anything for Jinan, is kind of the unfortunate reality. And he has no improved cruiser skills. So you definitely objectively want the Cole, the enhanced captain, I think they call it, right? The enhanced captain. Because having an extra 500 HP, 500 HP, or yeah, can I speak? Yeah, it is 500. Have an extra 500 HP, have an extra 0.5% fire chance. These are skills you would already take on Jinan, so it's great to have them. The debate really on these last 2 points is you could run torpedo reload. I don't ever feel like I don't have the torps fast enough. You definitely, I think, want superintendent. For sure, you're going to use all the smokes. Definitely want concealment. Kind of the other debate is sometimes I will drop one of these for, like, say, consumable specialist. So like torp speed for a consumable specialist, probably even better. Or you could drop them both for torp reload, of course. If you want the 4.8 AA skill, which I do really enjoy, it's hard to pick it on Jinan, unfortunately. You kind of either have to give up 10% DPM, give up consumables, or give up survivability. I think all of those are a crapshoot. Excuse me. That's why it's one of the only cruisers I don't take that skill on. I think overall this is probably pretty optimized. But swapping Swift Fish for a consumable specialist is probably an upgrade. Probably overall recommend that. We looked at the armor last time, but the armor is, ultralight cruiser armor, except this is the magic, right? The magic moment. The magic Jinan armor is being able to fight things at close range and not insta blow up, because if you adopt about a 22-degree angle, you'll auto bounce everything on the belt. But when we take away this armor, as you'll see, the 32 strip ends here, and that's exactly where the Citadel begins. So you angle like this, people aim here, which is where your Citadel is reachable. They will auto bounce. They aim at the nose, they will probably overpen the bow. So you can still take like 10 to 15k hits from BBs, just random overpens and random shells fusing whether they shouldn't. But if they don't have 460 plus millimeter guns, you can just go auto bounce angles, and you cannot be Citadel. So you cannot be one shot at close range by BBs that don't have 32 millimeter overmatch. It's just a great ship. When it comes to the cruisers without utility, I think it's probably just like maybe probably the best in the tech tree. As far as cruisers without radar goes in the tech tree, especially smoke cruisers, it's probably just still the best. It's just really fucking good. And if you don't have the Colbert, because you don't have research points or you're scared about investing in them, get the Jinan. Because I don't want to say they play the same, because the Colbert runs around at 40 plus knots with speed boost, but they kind of have similar shell arcs. The Jinan has a bit worse DPM, right? But it's still pretty good DPM. But see how you do leading the shells, and if you're doing good damage in the Jinan and you want the open water version, then you pick up the Colbert maybe. It's just really good, and it's one of the very few cruisers that's fun because you don't randomly blow up. That's it, man. That's the solution was in front of Wargaming the whole time. Having a cruiser hull that doesn't randomly blow up makes a ship playable. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? That'll do it for the Jinan. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.